Hi, everybody, and away we go with another edition of the Stampede Wrestling Show.
Welcome to another edition of Hart Beat Radio on Blog Talk Radio. It's going to be a great show this afternoon. We have several people coming on to talk about the business, and I'm going to be bringing a dear friend of ours from Hart Beat Radio, Mr. Tiger Conway Junior He'll be joining us shortly. I have a co-host with me. This is the new producer of our show, Mr. Matt Mertz from Portland. Welcome, Matt, to Hart Beat Radio.
Well, it's very good to be here, Bob. Nice to hear your voice again. How's everything going up in Canada?
It's really good here. I'll turn it over to our main host, Mr. Bruce Hart.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. I'd like to thank all the guests. I've been fascinated with the Texas wrestling for years. You know, I've had a good opportunity to interact in the past with Dorian Terry Funk and Johnny Mantell and Bruiser Brody and some of those guys. But so I'm looking forward to getting filled in by Tiger on some of those things. You know, as a rich period of history with the Von Erichs and all of that. So I'm looking forward to that. But my only involvement in Texas wrestling was down with Dorian Terry and that bunch in Amarillo, which was a vibrant territory back in the 70s. I was just kind of a wet behind the ears young punk back then. But Dory Funk Jr. and Terry were good kind of buddies. They used to come up when they were the world champions, and I was fortunate enough to meet a lot of the Amarillo, West Texas guys, which was like Dory and Terry, and then subsequent to that, Ted DiBiase and Tully and some of those guys that were Stan Hansen and guys like that. But back then, the Fritz's territory, which was pretty major league back then, I never got a chance to work there, or I never really knew that much about it. I've actually learned a lot about it just from Cowboy Johnny, who was there back in the 80s, I guess, in that stretch. But so I've been fascinated with it,
Without any further ado, it gives me the great pleasure to introduce two gentlemen. I met both of these guys at the Cauliflower Alley Club and the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. I had the pleasure of going to the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, which is, of course, the only Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame in Wichita Falls, Texas. And that was a couple of years ago. Welcome back to Hart Beat Radio, Mr. Johnny Mantell, President of. Welcome to Hart Beat Radio.
Well, thanks, Bob, Bruce, and everybody. My dear friend Tiger, I know he's listening too. I'm just honored to be on with such esteemed personalities in this wrestling business, and I want to thank everybody that was involved or any part of this year's induction ceremony in Wichita Falls, our 15th overall, but our first one here in Wichita Falls we felt like it was a huge success. We had 700 plus on the street on Friday night to watch wrestling under the stars. We had right at 300 in the Iron Horse Pub on Thursday night for a little comedy show and Q&A with the fans, and then of course the banquet on Saturday night. We fed 391 people at the banquet. What I'm being told by everybody is the best ribs they've ever had. So we're really proud of the weekend we put on. Of course, there's things we'll fix and adjust for next year, but it's just going to get bigger and better every year.
Usually you go to a lot of these reunions and the meals, you pay a lot of money and the meals are the shits for the most part. But that dinner that they had at the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, unbelievable. They had these all-you-could-eat ribs, and these weren't like little ribs you buy at Safeway or something. These were the real McCoy, and they kept coming and coming and coming, and man, I got stuffed, and I just hope the hell that they have them next year.
If I can get Bruce to promise that him and Keith and maybe the whole family, maybe the sisters and the whole group comes, man, we're going to have ribs again, because they were awesome. It's a group they call themselves Rib Inks. They're not a restaurant or a catering service. What it is, it's a group of men here in town that get together and cook ribs for different functions and organizations. And we were very blessed to have them come and cook our meal that night, and they were so happy to be a part of it. And as you said, Bob, the ribs were so good. They weren't like you had to dip them in barbecue sauce or do anything to them. That's how good they were. And we are looking forward to having them again. We wanted to make sure that this first year with the induction ceremony going on here in Texas, that we could give it a little bit of a Texas flair. Flair was a rib dinner on Saturday night for everybody to enjoy, and I'm just really proud again of the weekend that we had. I'm not going to sit here and tell anybody that there wasn't other little things that we obviously know that we have to fix and adjust and make better, and we're going to do that painstakingly day in and day out to make sure that next year is even bigger and better than this year, and to continue to make this thing grow. It's we got such great television coverage and radio coverage from it, and such kind comments from everybody that came, and again, I don't want to take anything away from the group in New York that gave birth to this Hall of Fame and taught it how to crawl and taught it how to walk and got it walking really fast, and now we've brought it to a city that wants to help support and stand behind it, where we can really get this thing running around the track and make sure that the people out there in the world know that this is the destination spot for everything professional wrestling involved. I know right now with WWE controlling the mindset of fans around the country, because that's about all you really see on TV anymore. We're not in competition with them, but we are as far as making sure people know who and what we are. We're not affiliated with any wrestling organization whatsoever, yet we promote all wrestling organizations.
You're more than welcome to stay on. I know you have obligations, but if you'd like to stay on, that'd be great. If you have to leave, that's fine. But I really appreciate you coming on this afternoon, John. And then I can turn it over to...
Bob, I appreciate that. And Matthew, I'd sure like to visit with you at some point in time with your knowledge and your historian part of professional wrestling, so that we can get it tied in here with the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame. And to my friend Tiger, I'm just going to tell Tiger I'm going to go to the football game tonight and make sure we get another interception.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope so. Thank you. Very good, Johnny. I think you hit it real well.
Welcome to Hart Beat Radio, Tiger Conway Junior.
I'm glad to be on Hart Beat Radio.
Tell me, Tiger, did you and Johnny ever have any? Did you guys cross paths back in the 70s when you guys were just getting your feet wet in the business? Or you were telling me you never actually worked with Johnny, but you guys knew each other, though. How did that go?
Oh, well, I tell you, it looked like we were one town away from each other, and then soon as we got to the town, one went one way again, and that was it, you know, with the movement and everything that was going on. And the Von Erichs down in Dallas, I mean, coming from Houston, as he told you the difference in the territories, you got to be part of this. And second generation, I was. It's 250 miles from Houston to Dallas.
So I remember many a time everybody in the business used to talk back, like that was part of the deal. And I remember many a time running into guys from one territory and another, and I always heard very good things about both of you guys. You know, Ken and Johnny Mantell were always, you know, I remember my brother Keith and Brett hooked up with them in Japan in early 80s. But I remember, you know, you'd always hear about these guys, and I heard your name mentioned many a time and say, well, there's this worker down in Paul Bosch's territory and Tiger Conway Junior, you know, he's a hell of a hand. And it was kind of interesting just to hear those stories, you know, and I think even Dory and Terry Funk, I remember telling me about you, and also Ken and Johnny, and it was always nice things they said, you know. the guy down in Dallas. You know, you guys should try to get him up there. You know, Johnny Mantell, or you know, and it was kind of like that. It's kind of neat just to reflect on how the boys always that used to be the best barometer of whether a guy was a good hand or not. It was what the boys used to say, and I remember it was always nothing but nice things I ever heard about both of you guys from all kinds of wrestlers. You know, guys who I respected a lot, like Dorian Terry and Harley and Tim Brooks and guys like that. You know,
very true. Well, to learn from what you say, as Bob said, old school wrestling. That's what it's all about. The guys and your dad and my father, Luther Lindsay, and all of the other guys that you mentioned, Sweet Daddy. I can't help but say that because I remember before they ever was integrated into the business and then segregated from the business, I remember that as a kid listening, not understanding. And as you made a statement earlier, for the people that don't know, we would talk about it riding home, and my dad said, you know, my friend's sons, they have plans for them. They're all going to be educated. You're looking at educated wrestlers that have other jobs, you know, and there's something else. And that's what the people didn't understand, becoming great workers and coming from second generation, the families, you know, it means so much. It was really looked upon, and also the promoter, Paul Bosch and Morris Siegel back in the day, when everybody, Dez and Jonathan and Kaniski, Kowalski, all of these guys would look up so big, and Yukon, Eric, Robert, also, Carpentier, and all of these names, you know. I remember when I came to Canada, I remember the Hart, and I remember all the way down, and I remember saying, no wonder, there are really smart guys, you know. They do other things besides just one thing, and they have other jobs. They have talent. And you become that, you become a great worker and probably great fathers, historians, and everything. And just to say one thing, the comment back from wrestling to boxing, I didn't say nothing, but, you know, somewhere in there, there's a Conway in there married to Layla Ali, I think. I don't know why. Sometimes you look over some things, but that name is there. And I have to bring it up because I know what I'm talking about. I really know.
I know back in the day, my dad had some of the best black wrestlers ever in the business up here for a long stretch, like Sweet Daddy and Abdullah and Luther Lindsay and Bearcat Wright and he told me that he said there was a bit of a color line down in certain territories in the States, and my dad was always he was a bit pissed off that that existed down there, and I think it's guys like your dad and some of the guys we mentioned that kind of broke down that color line. They were like the Muhammad Alis and the Jackie Robinsons of pro wrestling, you know, and where they kind of integrated the business and broke down the barriers, and that's kind of to their credit, you know, and if the wrestling business served that purpose, then it should be proud of itself for that.
Yes, I appreciate you saying that, but I wish that the second generation wrestling families were closer than what they are, instead of just on greeting at times, you know, and then knowing them so well in the family, and before you and then after you. But here, you look at a situation where you're so successful. Why is it that all of the successful men then pile their money up and put it together and continue wrestling at times when the days came? You know what I'm saying? And then back out because it took money to keep it going, but the prices was low. Now we're in a marketing situation that is so high now, you got to continue to flow with it. And just like you say, you know, you've got to know how to go in order to show, you know. And it's so smart that the smarts pays off, but when you start losing interest because something happens, there's always a backup somewhere, or a plan B or something. that should be pulled out. As I say, you look at the territories back in the day, you go to the capital where the capital is of the countries and whatever. There's congressmen and senators in there battling each other, and they said, hey, we might as well start wrestling and boxing, you know? But sometimes it's like it's really like that. And even in a family, you come out swinging and you know, hey, things will get done. If not, you know, you start back over from where you started, you know, and get it right.
Yeah.
And I look at it, I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to quit, and I'm not going to give up because my father instilled that in me, you know. And, I mean, the background, you would not believe if you really knew. It's not all bad, but it was bad until it turned great and good. Now, as I say, everybody has education and the smarts. You need to use it. You know, you have to use it. And that's the Bible, you know. I mean, some people don't have that silver spoon or the gold spoon in their mouth all the time, you know. Great, it's great, but then when you don't have that, it's that some are angry because they have to do so much to become that. As Johnny mentioned about the money, you know, today, that what we made and then the popularity of the great fans. I think wrestling fans are the greatest fans. They are good people, they're hardworking people, and they follow you.
That's one of the saddest things to me, Tiger and Johnny, about the evolution of the wrestling business the last 20, 30 years is the wrestling's been taken away from the wrestling fans. Like back in the day, as we were saying before, there was 30, 40 territories around North America, and they were wrestling every night in 40 different, and fans were able to come out for $4 or $5 and get their fix. You know, they maybe can. WWE comes here maybe once every year or two, and that's the only wrestling any fans up here see. Or probably same in Dallas. They come once or twice a year. Or something.
You know, that's what we did on Friday night with the Wrestling Under the Stars. We had no barricades up, and we let the fans come to ringside and get autographs when the wrestlers got to the ring for a few minutes, like we used to do back in the day. And that's the one thing I learned by sort of working this city for a while, getting ready to make this move of the Hall of Fame here, was that's what everybody said to me. They wanted to see wrestling like it used to be in the old 4-H arena here, and that was the long time Leroy and Bill Watts ran it for 18 or 19 years, what they called the old 4-H building. It was a crummy old building. There wasn't nothing big to talk about, no fancy chairs or no fancy...
They were all like that.
But that's
Calgary is the same. Edmonton,
kind of
Amarillo.
building people wanted to come to and see wrestling in, and they saw the best there was, and that's what we tried to relive for them this weekend, to sort of start the Hall of Fame off with some old classic wrestling matches. And Mr. Steinborn, when I was just a kid in Florida, walked me out in front of a building, and he said, and I said, yes, sir, it says wrestling. And he says, that's right. And he says, as long as that sign says that, you need to do a little bit of it. So that's what we tried to do on Friday night of the Hall of Fame weekend.
Yeah, it's funny that's almost been lost in the shuffle, the word wrestling, you know, and WWE, not to be railing on them, but they need to be readdressing that, you know, because wrestling is the operative word, you know, and all too often when I see Raw and SmackDown, is everything but wrestling, you know, which is not the way it should be, you know. But
you know, the wrestling fans look at it that the cards there was in the 70s to the 80s was unbelievable. I think everybody in the business was traveling around from the different territories back and forth in different places.
Oh, and that was one of the beauties of the business. That was one of the beauties of the business, Tiger, was you'd get guys like Ken and Johnny Mantell going from one territory to another, and guys like you, and everyone was bringing ideas and, you know, sharing information and stuff, and that was such a big part of it. I remember so many of the angles and the storylines we did up in Calgary. You know, somebody would come in from Texas or Tennessee or Georgia or whatever, and they'd say we did an angle down in, you know, Amarillo or in Galveston the other day with, you know, Fritz and Killer Brooks or whatever, and then you try it up here, and somebody from here would go down there and say, Brett and Dynamite Kid did a thing down in Regina, and that was a big part of why the business was so good. You had all these guys sharing ideas, and
unbelievable.
It was like a big family, the whole business, And
that's what it was. That you hit it right there. That's it. But I'm telling you this real quick from my experience and what I did. Leaving from Dallas, that's where me and Johnny went another way. If Johnny would have went with me to Atlanta, to that first Omni show in Atlanta with Barnett coming in, Bobby Shane, and then Florida, the plane crash happened. I went there to help them out back to North Carolina without losing the position with George Scott. If Johnny would have came in, I told him many times, he would have been unprecedented, I think, with his style and everything. Looking at it, and it was so good because everything was going up in the air, exploding. And that's where I had an opportunity to meet Mr. Richard Flair. And the same time we come in, he came in, and I'm the one that made Flair go, woo, woo, because I was potatoing him. And he didn't understand. I said, Rick, if I'm hitting you, you're green, start hollering. And the people start feeling sorry for him, and then they start booing him. And when he healed me, I said, do you see what's going on? He said, yeah. I said, when I hit you, you woo. And he did. I say something. You're not saying anything. You're not acting. You're not putting my punches over it either. So let's do it. And he said, oh. I said, well, don't want to listen to me, huh? I said, I'm second generation. I said, I don't know what generation you are, but I think you need to come on. Get with it. And that did it, and then I gave him the 10-year, I gave him the cauliflower, and Wild finished it up. But the thing about it, we all did all of these things to each other. And it became. And then we had Valentine after that. That's what I'm saying with Johnny with the talent. It was just coming in day after day after day. I mean, every name. Tony Atlas was here. The Andersons, everybody. And I said,
yeah, I was told, Tiger, I was amazed at how many of the legendary guys you worked with, and some of the guys were veterans when they started with you, and
yes.
I remember talking to guys like Ted DiBiase.
Yes.
He told me you were one of the guys who kind of helped break him in, and
I put it over in Houston. I did it. Yes.
Yeah, he told me that he was just kind of getting his feet. Another guy I met years back, he told me that you were a big factor for him was Matt Bourne. Who worked Doink the Clown or whatever, and he had nothing but nice things to say. He said, you did a lot for him when he was just getting his feet wet.
Yes.
So, Greg Valentine was another guy who told me.
Greg too, yes. All of
did
them.
a lot for him,
Sting too, but Sting was a baby, and Sting just followed the flow. I said, you're going to get over, man. I said, hey, I'm just selling a black ticket, and I know it. And it was happening. And he looked at me, he said, what do you mean? I said, you didn't see them people in those seats a month ago. They're there. I said, I told the shit. I told this lady in the project I was kidding her. She said, what? And then my family is down there. And they all came. It's funny.
I think that was one of the beauties of the business is how guys like you, and I heard the same about Johnny, and Johnny and Ken, they took a lot of guys that were just kind of getting their feet wet and gave them confidence and made them look good and all like that. And that was sort of one of the nice things about the business that sort of needs to be brought back to, that kind of that passing of the torch from one generation to the other and that type of thing.
I had Rick Martel. I groomed him, and then I had Dino Bravo.
Oh yeah, as another guy. I remember I spoke to Dino and Rick when they were after they had worked in Montreal. They said they worked with you a lot back in maybe in Atlanta or Carolina or somewhere in there.
But
with George Scott.
I was young. I was younger than all of these people that I'm telling you about, and they had to listen to me to do the match. Do you believe that? That's how it was. They listened to me. I said, this is the only way you're going to get over. I said, I can put you over or put you under. It's left up to you. I said, we can have a good one or bad. I said, I enjoy having great matches because I want to be a great worker. And I want my dad to remember that when he closed his eyes, you know. And I said, the minis didn't, but I said, I don't know. I don't know. I've worked very hard. Very hard. I did.
Another guy who spoke very highly of you was Chavo Guerrero. He told me he had a great rapport, and he said you did a lot for him.
Yes. Chavo, I had much fun with him. And also it goes back to, I'm going to say this about Chavo and Leo Garibaldi. It was really fun with those two. It was something, and I knew the mix was there, and it's in there, and it just was nothing but great things that came from it by putting time in and working hard and coming up with my own high spots. That's the thing about it. None of the guys could do that unless. That's the thing that fooled them for television. And when Jack Briscoe seen that, I said, no, we're going to do this. And he said, how you going to do that? I said, well, I'm going to mix the wrestling in with the high spot, and I'm going to do this, and you do that. And he said, wow, I've never done that. I said, okay, let's try it. And it worked. You know, and then Funk, Terry. So what can you say about Terry Funk, man? I mean, everything this guy has done over a career, I said, how can I do these things to make him, and then, you know, with him, and then Harley Race, Pat O'Connor, Bob Geigel, Cicluna, Ronnie Etchison, so many, you know.
Yeah, those are legends. Those are, I know all those guys. Thankfully, I had the chance to, but yeah, there's another guy we had on the show a while back, last year and a few years ago, actually, but another guy who broke in up here back in the day, and he told me he had some great programs with you, was Buddy Roberts.
Oh, my God, yes.
Playboy
yes.
Buddy Roberts or whatever. He had started up here back, and he and a guy named Terry Brown.
Right.
He told me he worked a lot with you down in with Dino Bravo. I think he said you and Dino were a tag team, and you guys teamed with and worked. Yeah. Was that up in Montreal, or was that in Atlanta, or where was that?
With Dino?
Yeah, with Dino and Buddy Roberts and Terry Brown.
Kansas City and St. Louis. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know. Buddy told me he told me he loved working with you. He said you were great. Had a lot of fire, and sold your ass off for him and got him over and all that.
He did it. Put him over right away. You wouldn't believe it. They couldn't believe it. And that's how it works, you know, when you have someone that has their mind on what they're doing and interest into the business, you know. It's just like the green guys coming in, you know, they're so anxious to get over that they try to do everything at one time. And it's one step at a time, you know.
I know all the old workers, I'm sure Johnny would tell you the same, but that was always one of the first things they ever told you was the two most important things are the sell and the comeback. Yes. And if you sell your ass off and you come back with fire, chances are you'll get over. And I remember Buddy Roberts told me that that was one of the reasons he loved to work with you. He said you always sold and put him over, but he said you always come back with a lot of fire and a lot of heart and passion and all like that. And he said that was a simple formula to get over, but he said a lot of today's workers seem to have forgotten that. They want to do all the high spots and all the other, but they don't quite get the big picture, you know.
Yes, but it's simpler when you sit down and explain it to them real quick. And then a lot of matches here, there were no conversations about what was going on because the guy is just coming in for the first time, you know. They said, let's just play it by ear. You know, I'll call it right there. We can call it without talking too loud or whatever, you know.
I think back in the day, I'm sure you pounded the highways
I got out of the car, Bruce. I got out of the car and I went down one farmland there, and I said, "Where am I going?" And I said, "I don't know whether I want to go back or keep going."
I know back in the day that you used to learn more on the road trips. You know, you'd be in going 500 miles to this place or that place, and you'd have these old guys like Harley and Dory Funk, and they'd be schooling you and telling you what you're doing right and wrong, and slow down, and why did you do this, and you know, all that kind of stuff. And I think that's a big part of it that's missing today too, is you know, the old guys kind of schooling the young guys, you know, and they don't have the road trips and that whole thing anymore either, which is.
That's right. They're running so fast they can't even find out where their front is from the back. You know, the back is the reverse and forward, you know. And I keep doing stop right here, you know, relax. Let's call time out here.
Tim and Bruce, I got a co-host from Portland Wrestling, Matthew Mertz, told me he had a couple of questions he wanted to ask you.
Oh, sure.
Well, I'm very curious to know a little bit more about Tiger's career and some of the men he teamed with. If I could ask him a few questions. You know, we touched on Dino Bravo there, but I know he also held the Texas tag titles there in Fritz Von Erich's promotion with both Bull Ramos and Kerry Von Erich, and held a couple tag titles in Texas with Iceman King Parsons, and was a 3-time NWA American tag champ with Jose Lothario, who's best known by modern fans for training Shawn Michaels.
Well,
and so I'm curious just from Portland to hear more about Bull Ramos, because he's kind of a man of legend here in the Pacific Northwest.
Wow, I mean, hey, as a youngster, and one of the boys at one time, I told him, I said, "You guys are frightening me. I don't know if this is really true or not." I said, "I never thought meeting you and then knowing you and living in Texas around you that I would end up wrestling against you and wrestling with you." And it just great things happened, you know. It all just fell into place. And when they knew where I was coming from, and I wasn't out for trying to become, you know, big time world's champion, and just taking it as it comes, some of the guys kind of sit back, you know, because, you know, in competition you don't let everything out. And knowing that you're working with each other, you don't, you know, throw your secrets out or your certain finishing signature moves either, because they get stole so fast. And I saw that in Atlanta, mainly with the American Dream. Dusty, I thought he would be more like Murdoch, and he was, you know, as the Outlaws. And then the conversation changed, the years changed, the slang changed, you know, and being around Thunderbolt and the movements and the dancing and the jive and all of that, he played it very well. And I see, you know, he stayed with that. But I'm just saying that as one point to, you know, you look to say, well, should I do the same thing or should I stay where I'm at? And, you know, knowing that music is the reason, and I'll see this, all of the influence in music now, and I asked George, as I see with Flair, because I listened and I knew James Brown and I knew Prince. I knew most of these people that all came to you. And it was wrestling, just getting to that point. But knowing the music business, and they were offering a black station, a radio station who wanted to become, I had an opportunity for that, but I turned it down. And I understand that, but, you know, I looked at it and this drew all of these people closer and closer, because that's what it was going to about the music part, real quick. And everybody had an intro, you know what I'm saying, with the music, you know, Eye of the Tiger or something else. And as you saw, they exploited it real well with Cyndi Lauper and David Wolf. I know them very well. And Wendy Reckner and then the other black managers for all this, because they wanted me, some of the black stars wanted me to bodyguard them when they come to Houston. But I never did that, and I was too busy. So I, you know, told them. But go ahead. I just wanted you to know
Hey, Tiger and everybody, let me just scoot in real quick and wish everybody the very best. I got a Boy Scout troop coming in that we're going to give a tour at the hall with today, and I want to be able to walk these kids around and tell them some stories. But Bruce, Bob, Matthew, Tiger, y'all are in my heart the rest of the day. Tiger will tell you the stories from back in the day here in Texas, and he's got so much knowledge of the history of wrestling here in the state of Texas that he's a walking history book for wrestling here in the state of Texas. So I just want to say God bless everybody. Bruce, I'm going to yell at you here in the next couple of days. And, Tiger, I'll make sure I make eye contact with your son tonight at the football game.
Make sure. Just tell him to go ahead and do his thing. You hear me?
I will, buddy. God bless you, my friend. I'll see you next week. I'm going to set with you at next week's game.
Okay. All the best.
Thank you very much, Johnny. I'll get with my brothers and all of them and try to get them committed to coming down there next year. Brett and whoever else.
Thanks, Bruce. Well, Bob, you take care of yourself. And, Matthew, I look forward to speaking with you, young man.
Thank you, Johnny. I appreciate that, sir.
I went a little further there. I hope that I was answering those questions for you pretty well.
Oh, that's okay. I'm used to talking to old timers. They always tend to go off into another direction, but you always end up learning something from them, which is what's important is passing that tradition on orally that's being lost nowadays.
I think we're at Bull Ramos there. Bull Ramos, I think, is where we left off there.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's kind of a man of legend here in the Pacific Northwest, a real man of renown.
I heard.
And you don't hear a lot about, him, the personal side of that man and who he really was. I know he loved fishing because he went fishing all the time with Dutch Savage up here.
Yes.
But from the fans' perspective, he was a madman.
Boy, boxing, too. He could really handle himself, And when he gets wound up, that's it. You better get out of there. Bull was a tough individual. He didn't give up, and he hung in there all the way to the end. And he had a record service company that he would work with my dad. A lot of his fishing trucks, he would pick them up and bring them when they break down back into the office.
If I might interject, Tiger, I remember my dad had a black wrestler up here in the 60s. He was a dear friend of his. He had great respect for him, but a guy named Luther Lindsay, and he always spoke very well of your father.
Yeah.
Luther did, and I'm not sure if some of the modern-day fans know of Luther Lindsay or your father, but amongst the old-timers, those were two guys who were extremely well-respected and regarded by everyone in the business. I think even Lou Thez, I remember he and my dad were up here talking one day, and Lou Thez was saying that, either one of those guys could have been the world NWA world champion back in the day. They were that good, but a lot of people might not be familiar with that, but maybe you could tell us a little. I'm not sure if you ever got a chance to meet Luther or not. He unfortunately passed away back in the early 70s, I guess. But I know Luther spoke very highly of your dad, who I guess he worked with down in maybe Texas or some of the territories back in the day. And I remember just hearing the name when Luther was up here, and he's had nothing but nice things to say about your dad.
Yes, Luther and his wife, and my mother,
Gertrude.
Gertrude, yes, Gertrude. I remember I was little, and I always was looking forward to that because my dad would tell me what great respect he had for Luther Lindsay, and it was something that when I started reading about Luther, I went into the history from Hampton, I think, University, the football and the wrestling, and nothing but high respect, from the kid. And I was waiting, and I knew I was going to Charlotte, and I went in and talked to Mr. Jim Crockett, and then as soon as I left, Mr. Crockett passed away. And then Luther was somewhere, he was coming back. But all of this time, Lou Thez was in Houston talking with my dad and Paul Bosch all of the time, so Lou would be at our home. When I would come in and I'd see Lou in the house, and I said, "Hey, there's a white man in the bedroom." And everybody would run. They would run. No, not here. I said, "Yes, there's one there." I said, "I don't know who it is." And Lou would be in the bed, and then he'd come up. I said, "Oh, it's Dad's friend." Then my sisters would go, "We got to get him out of here." I said, "No, let him stay. He's supposed to stay." They said, No, white people supposed to be in the house in Texas. So, we would play games like that, and they would laugh. So many other Arch Anderson would be there, and it's unbelievable. You would not believe Nick Kozak, Jerry Kozak before he went away, and Bull Ramos, Danny McShane. I mean,
oh yeah, those are all names
unbelievable.
As soon as you mention them, they kind of bring back memories. Danny McShane and Bronco Lubitsch and Danny Pletches and
Dick Raines, all of them.
Yeah, Dirty Dick Raines and oh man, those are some of the El Medico and
Bruce and Tiger. Sorry to interrupt here. Just going to say we have about another 35 to 40 minutes left on the live telecast. We hope you can stay on as long as you can.
I'm at your service. Let's keep going. Whatever you want to do, just tell me.
All right. Just keep going. It's about 35 to 40 minutes of the live for sure. And I really appreciate the questions that Matthew had here. I've got the board is lighting up here. I've got hundreds of people asking questions. Could I have a couple of people calling in, and they want to ask Tiger a couple of questions? I was wondering if I could go to the tweet board and the chat line here. I've got a guy here, Michael from Las Vegas. He asked, can you ask Tiger Conway Junior to compare Fritz von Erich and Paul Bosch as promoters?
Geez, Mike, I tell you, it was a pleasure to work for Fritz. And after, being a kid, walking in all those times and then being one of the boys, looking at it on the perspective of how he ran the business, there was two different sides to Jack and Fritz, and you had to know that. And he was happy. But I was with David, the oldest at the time, I think, and then Kevin, then Kerry, then Mike and the other one.
Chris.
But I tell you, I don't know if all of you all know this, but I think the last one, is that Mike is his name? He was in the elementary school. And Fritz was going over everywhere, just real quick. And Chris did something in the class, and the teacher told him not to do that again. And as Fritz was relaying this to my father, she said, "Told you not to do that again. And if not, we're going to be in trouble. I'm going to call the principal." And Chris said, "No, you don't have to call the principal." So he put the claw on the teacher. But he was the youngest one, and he did. So Fritz did have to come to the school and, take care of the situation. But it was so funny. All the brothers.
When Fritz got there, did he put the claw on the principal too?
It was too late to call the principal. He called the teacher. That's how they go. I don't know if everybody knows it, but Fritz being a father, as I'm saying this to you, I think the boys really respected the mother, the father, the grandfather, the family. But we grew up together, and we also had fun together, going from Houston to Dallas, 250 miles, to Six Flags over Texas. Every show we were able to get in. And with the Von Erichs, they had the ticket. They had the golden ticket because I think Fritz was on the board. That was it. And when he bought Lake Dallas, I think that did it, And, to have rides home from the Cotton Bowl with the state highway department and everybody, the bankers and everybody, escorted in and out big time, and very quick and fast success, as I say. I sit in the back, and I looked, and I knew, and my father knew way before me. But we had a fence company, and my father put up the fence around Fritzlam swimming pool at the lake down his home in another part at certain times. And also did much work for Paul Bosch here at his home here, fencing, putting up the dog runs and all the dogs also.
How was he with you, Tiger, Paul Bosch?
Paul, I mean, to break into the business here and listen to all these guys come in, the money was there. It wasn't a dollar off. He gave you an envelope with a conversation with it, and also an offer to come back and when he would like to have you back in the agreement. And looking forward to that, you know, and then seeing some of the top men, Valentine and Malenko, the run Jose Lothario, no complaints about nothing. The dressing room was happy. Bastine and Red Lions. I mean, Max Shane, Pletchers, Dick Raines, the referees, Otto Coos, Sid Jones, all of these men, Pepper Gomez, years, I mean, never as I was growing up did I hear them say anything bad. And the story my dad knew, and I think as we were talking about Luther before then, working with Mars Siegel. But Fritz was a different story. I don't know. It went up and then it went down, you know, and then it just went boom. And as they got kids was coming up, as they got stronger and stronger and more popular and more popular, I saw Fritz make the change deep down inside as I looked at my dad, as myself, and also Joe Blanchard. I had three different families to look at. And I put myself there, you know, and I put myself in the middle of all of that. And I saw the difference in Tully Blanchard. I saw the difference in the Von Erichs, and then all of a sudden it's like they were shot up in a rocket.
Second generation kids like yourself and Tully Blanchard and Jay Youngblood and Gino Hernandez and Von Erich's kids. And
right.
How many of them came up? DiBiase and you know, it's amazing. I knew a lot of those guys when they were kids, you know, and I met them through Dorian Terry and all like that. But you know, and yourself included, became incredible workers. You know, you think about all those guys. You know, they're among the best workers of their generation. Another one, Greg Valentine. You know, it's remarkable how many of you guys kind of. You know, grew up in the business and became among the best workers of your time.
Yes, they all. I asked all of these guys, what did they like about wrestling and their background as amateur in professional high school, collegiate, and then everyone said that they loved the wrestling. I said, love it. What do you mean? They said, I live it. I live it every day. I dedicated to it. And I said, no, I like to play football. I'm not supposed to do that. And I said, I like wrestling too. I said, but now, real quick, I said, I'm fighting outside of my classroom, down the street, trying to get into our house. When my dad don't put someone over right or he don't go over, they want to challenge me. They want to whoop me for next week, as they said. I said, you wouldn't believe it. I mean, the whole families, everybody jumped on me walking down the street. And my mom said, where have you been? I say, in the ditch, fighting. And it is like you almost make it home, but you don't make it in before, you know, somebody try to jump on you or hurt you or something. But I learned to take care of myself in a way. My father had taught me to do the right things, and I worked out, and it helped, I tell you. And then conversation was had to get for Gav. I think I talked my way out of a lot of pipes too. Someone brought back a return real fast too. But getting back to that, Paul Bosch was one of the greatest payoffs. I mean, Goulas and everybody, man. I mean, Kansas City, unbelievable. I mean, it was like night and day. And Fritz also, when the territory came up, I saw Ivan Putski. I think I saw him telling Fritz something one day, and I couldn't believe it. I said, "You're about the only guy that ever screamed at Fritz like that." He said, "Hey, you screamed at it too if your money wasn't right." And I thought it was right. He said, "No, it wasn't." So, but only those situations like that it came out. But what happened in those offices' doors, that was their business. And I left it there. We were on a ride, and I said, "Are you okay now?" He said, "No, I'm supposed to come back next week, And I said, "Well, maybe he'll pay you then, right? He'll pay it right then." "Oh, no, I don't think so." But Joe was funny, man. I tell you, I had so many great teachers, Matthew, Bruce, that I will never forget it, and I had nothing but respect for these people. And basically, I will say, listening to my dad talk about Luther, I thought Luther was kin to the family, and then he told me, he said, "No, Luther and Stu are brothers." They're really good. He's Luther lives with Stu. I never would forget that.
I've always been so curious about Luther Lindsay because when I was a kid growing up, I would listen to my dad and my uncle talk about men like Luther Lindsay and Shag Thomas, and it wasn't until I was 30 years old that I found out they were black. And that says a lot about the Pacific Northwest and kind of how we were raised out here, where Luther Lindsay, if he would have been in Kentucky at the same time, he would have been able to be a Negro champion only. Out here, he was the first champion of Portland wrestling. Well, and that just always kind of is, that just kind of shocked me to find that out at 30 years old, that there were Negro championships in the 1960s when, out here, guys like Luther were teaming with Pepper Martin and interracial tag teams.
Yeah, it was kind of sad, I know my dad had so many of those black guys up in Calgary, and some of them were amongst the best workers I ever saw, Luther and Sweet Daddy Siki and Bearcat Wright and Abdullah, guys like that. And most of them told me places they couldn't get work in the States. This is back in the 50s and 60s. They said it was just the way it was. It was around the time when Muhammad Ali was kind of coming up. But I remember my dad was... he had all, from as far back, I think my dad started promoting up here in 48, and I think one of the first big stars he had up here was a guy named Woody Strode that he broke in up here, who was playing football up here, and he had a guy named Sealy Samara, and when I've read about those guys since, it's like, wow, those guys are among the bigger names of their time, but for whatever reason, a lot of them couldn't get work in a lot of places in the States, and they were sort of trailblazers, just like Muhammad Ali, I guess, a Luther and a Sweet Daddy and an Abbey, and
right. Many guys back then, and then like Dallas had, Mike Singletary's dad was with Luther, Mike.
Oh, is that right? I know my dad told me Luther was a hell of a football player too. He played back in one of those. I'm trying to remember the name of the. I don't think it was Grambling, but it was one of those southern schools down in Virginia.
I was in real short. I was in the dentist office there. I was staying over in Norfolk, where the scope is, and I went to the dentist to get checked, and one of the black dentists was looking into my mouth, and he looked at my record there, and he said, "I see you are a wrestler." I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, my buddy I went to school with is Luther Lindsay." I said, "Oh, wow." And I said, "My dad and him are really good friends." He said, "You got to be kidding." And that's how, I knew Luther knew quite a few people, man. I'm telling you, back then, it was something, and he had passed away. But it was shortly, right before I got there, and I was really looking highly to really get a chance to meet him, because I had talked to Gertrude and the daughter, and they were waiting for me to come when I got to Greensboro there, and it didn't happen, and that was one of the things. But your dad and my dad and Luther, the stories, and then Thesz, when he told me and verified all of these things, it's like, he was a great athlete, and I said, you got to be kidding. They said, yeah, it's all true, and I felt very well, very happy about that. The dream was to meet him, and my other dream was to meet Stu, and I was coming there, and
I remember we were at one of those Cauliflower Alley gigs maybe a year or two before my dad died, and I don't remember if you. I'm pretty sure you were down there. It's maybe in 2001, somewhere in there, And
really, yes, very early 2000. And that was just it, And my dad, when I talked to him, I said, "Happy Dad." He said, "Yeah." He said, "I'm with my friend," and he said, "Stu is like, wouldn't believe." He said, "He's so good to me," and I knew he meant it, And I always thought that if I could have a relationship with some of the guys, as I said, that went one way because of egos. I mean, wow, man! I see that overnight, from nothing to something, and then boom, everything busts apart, and you start all over again. And I said, the other guys, and I don't see the other guys going through all of these things that the young guys are, And I'm like, what is it? So my dad looked at me and he said, "Hey, I think it's their marriages." He said, "A lot of these guys didn't stay married long, He said, "They're not married long." And I said, "You got to be kidding." And by the way, I'm married 44 and a half years now, today, as of now.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I know a lot of those guys that seem to be instrumental in your career, Tiger, were guys that either worked up. I think that almost every one of them was kind of a main player up here, like Paul Bosch and George Scott, and so it's kind of a small world.
You know what really worked was from those mentors and those really powerful people that became something. The thing stuck in. It didn't. I didn't let it come out the other ear. I let it go into the head and the brain, and I kept it there. And I always remember in trouble in front of you or wherever, there's always a way out, but there's only one right way, and that's the true way. That's the right way. And I use that. It worked. I tell you, it works every time because there's too many obstacles out in this world today. My horizon was the windshield of the car, and that was supposed to take me and bring me back. And that's what I used as my guide and my navigator. And I knew I was on the course, and they told me, stay focused, ride it until it goes. Till they bring you back, take you there every time. And
that's great advice.
Yes. So I checked those highways, and I looked, and I stopped in certain places and checked if I needed an out, which way I was going to run, and I was going to run by myself. I wasn't going to tell nobody. I was going to save myself because I had something to get back to, and that's my wife. You understand? And my baby. And that's what it was. The other ones don't have that to get back to. And then they wasn't even there yet. And they didn't know. But I had that. And I had a great family. Grandmother, grandfather was still living. And they all were waiting. Those Conways was waiting. They were waiting, and that's the thing. I had someone waiting for me. And they would tell me when I go to church, when I make it to church, when I wasn't working on the show, that they love me. Your son is king, and we care about you no matter what. And I'll never forget it. And I didn't need any help because my daddy was blazing his own trails, and he's the older. And he showed us, how to take care of ourselves. He knew how to do a lot of things he knew. And I tell you, it means so much. And I asked a lot of the guys. I stayed at Steve Kern's house. We built a deck in the back of the home to come out and lay out on. I told him, I said, I don't need to take no sun, but I'm going to help you dig these holes. And I told Briscoe in Florida, the backstop for the water coming into his property, Jerry, I helped him in Florida when I was wrestling, build the cross ties across there, man. And it was just being in shape. And I done so many things that I remember that I gave something to them. And not one of them, no, they didn't have to do that. And my father, when they came in, he said, let me take care. I've been doing this before you. Let me do what I want to do. Don't step in front of me. I said, yes, sir. He said, I know all of them. I know all of them. And when I gave my dad that respect, he knew that whatever it was, you know, I did it on my own. Any trouble that I was in, my father wasn't in trouble. It was me because I was with somebody else that was in trouble. And trouble wasn't there, but I seen it, you know. And it was quick. And it's like Terry Funk, all the ribs and everything. I said, Terry, we're going to get in trouble. Oh, no, they're not. I know who these people. I know everybody around here. Okay. But you know, just truthfully, nothing else, you know, I'm not going to say nothing. And then I saw the tragedy in the territories. I was there. I was supposed to be on the airplane with Flair and them. I didn't go. I changed my seat, and I drove the car in Wilmington, North Carolina. But in Florida, I wasn't there. And I just came in, Eddie called, and I decided to go help him because of Bearcat and the guys, Buddy Colt, and all of that. That was it.
Wow.
That was it. I mean, I think I was on a good path, you know, in doing what I like in the business, being in the business, and working with all of the greatest wrestlers ever from back in the day. And looking forward to going to Calgary, but I lived in Montreal in Quebec with my dad when we were there. It was only fun, you know.
I remember my dad more than a few times. I was kind of just getting my feet wet in the business back then, but more than a few times I heard my dad say, I got this Tiger Conway. I'd like to have him up here. I heard good things about him, and yeah, I remember I thought it might happen. I was telling that to Johnny Mantel earlier that I had this Johnny Mantel's not a bad hand.
You hear the guys talk about your dad, and it's so much respect coming from Lupez, Hodge. I mean, all the way down the line, man. You know, O'Connor, and you know, I said Downey, Briscoe, him, you know, Jack, and Jerry. It was unbelievable. You know, I never heard nothing bad in it. You ever been up to Calgary? I said, oh, I knew. And then my buddies played football from here, and they were always telling me about it. And I don't know if we're going to have time to talk about it. I think you got one of my friends. Stu got one of my buddies from Houston, the big Spivey, Lee Spivey. You remember that?
Oh, yeah,
name?
I remember Big Lee Spivey, yeah.
Yeah.
He was, I think, an offensive lineman or something like that.
And he just couldn't figure it out, you know, and I wouldn't tell him. And he said, well, tell me. I said, I can't tell you. You got to find out on your own, you know. And he called and told me, he said, I'm up in Calgary, man. And I'm with Mr. Hart. I said, have he gotten you yet? He said, not yet, but I think we're fitting to work out. I said, I was going to say, no, don't do that. He got him.
Those were my dad's favorite, were the big football players. He had, I remember Wayne Coleman, who became Billy Graham's superstar, and he had a black guy named George Wells up here. I remember he had another guy who was I think he was out of Houston, named Ron Pritchard, who was, I think he was all-pro in NFL or something like that, but he was up here, and he was kind of a friend of Wayne Coleman's, and I remember how many of those, Wilbur Snyder and Joe Blanchard and Kiniski back in, those are all football players that my dad kind of started back in the 50s there, you know. Yeah, that was funny, how many of those football players became pretty good workers. I think even old Wahoo was another one. And I think he was an old friend of yours, too, from what I heard.
Yes, he didn't know
Wahoo
that I knew how to shoot. He didn't know I knew how to shoot. I put Wahoo in the closet. I put him in the bleachers. And he said, damn, you in there got me locked up in here and I can't. I said, you want me to let you go? I said, now you know, but you go Carl Gertz died, Bruce, Joe Simon, and Carl Gertz in Florida. I went in there and trained with him. Matt Suter was in the other room with Lex Luger.
Oh, yeah, he was a tough old bastard hero.
Oh, yes. But I knew what to do, and my dad said, Ali, boy, you've learned a lot. And he said, you don't have that kind of background. I said, yep. I said, that's from fighting those dishes on each corner around the house. These guys, and then about Spivey, my friends, there's just so much that you just don't know, and I was waiting to get in myself, but I got my cousin, so I had to back up, I had to leave them because my family would get mad at me when I stretch them, And say, okay. So my dad said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I guess I might as well stay in the business here. I said, if everybody treats you like Mr. Bosch, it'd be great. He said, well, you're going to have a rude awakening down that road until you find out, and it was. And, you were really telling me the truth, Dad. And I got to Kansas City and got paid there, and, man, I was like ready to quit right away. My wife was telling me, okay, come home. And I said, okay. And he said, I want to go back to Canada. Always wanted to go back to Canada. I was waiting. And I think that was when Rocky Johnson was in there and somebody else, I think.
I met another guy in Amarillo there, spoke very well of you. He must have been a contemporary of yours, guy's name. Pez Wadley.
Oh, wow. What a good guy.
Nice guy,
What a good guy.
He was working for Dory and Terry there, I guess, back then. But yeah, he had nothing but nice things to say about you.
Yes.
Talking about you being his brother and all like that,
The same, yes. There's no more Pez Wadley. I mean, I just told him, I said, with your background, brother, I said, I don't believe, from what I know with Luther, knowing how to wrestle, and you so nice about it and have all this background from high school and college, and then also a pro. Find anyone to say anything bad about Pez. You hear me? And
it seemed like a genuine, just a nice guy, Pez, Pistol Pez, they used to call him.
Right. I had a great run with him in WCW there when Crockett bought into Atlanta.
I know he had, I think last time I saw Pez was back in WCW. He had his, I'm not sure if they're his nephews or his kids, or they're doing, I think it was called Soul Train or something like that. They were back in the, would have been around the Bischoff era, in the early, something like that. There was one other old guy I met years back in Amarillo who spoke very well of you, Tiger, a guy named Swede Hansen.
Oh, wow. Yes. Well,
nice big guy. He was teaming with a guy named Rip Hawk at that time. And,
yes. I had to go through all of those guys, man, and then the Brute Bernard. I
remember Brute Bernard and
Hart Nelson. They all were trying to stretch me every way that you could think of, man. They throw me over the top rope.
They were the definition of, if you looked up the word crowbar in the dictionary, you'd see a face of Art Nelson.
Yes, I asked him. He put me in a headlock, and I said, loosen up. And I gave him the office. I said, can you hear me? He said, no. I said, loosen up. I can't get away to do what I want to do.
Yeah, they were kind of the definition of. But I remember Swede, though. He spoke very well of you. I think you were probably pretty young then, but he told me he had worked out with you a few times. He was, I think my brother Brett and I were down there, and he was saying I had this black kid named Tiger Conway Junior, and he said, you guys should get him up to Calgary. He spoke very well of you, and he was kind of a nice big guy. He had a pretty good worker too, old Swede.
Yes,
good
he
old
was. He was a tough son of a gun, man. I saw him knock out 3 guys in one night. I said, hey, how many more? I'm getting out of here. I'm on that list.
He
had it coming.
Yeah, he was pretty easy going, big guy, but not the kind of guy you want to mess with, old Swede.
Rip even said that. He said, whatever you do, don't get on the wrong side of him. I said, well, what side is that, left or right? Rip would laugh at me, but then Valentine and Greg, I told George Scott, I said, George, what did I ever do to you? I said, how come you put me with all these stiff guys? I said, I thought they were through. I said, I thought they were lined up behind my dad at home. They're through working. He said, yeah, on their way out. I said, oh, man. I said, I will never forget this. And, it was a lesson that I never will forget. I know that. But it was an honor to work with all of those top men and great men. And I really understand the business, and I looked at it. Would I become a booker? Would I become this and that? And I turned to George and I said, wonder why there's no black promoters and bookers. George laughed, and then when I was flying in Eddie Graham's plane with him, he says, Eddie, why is there no black bookers and promoters? He said, hell, don't nobody trust them. I said, that's the same way with the white guys. They don't nobody trust them either. You stay in my co-pilot seat. You're pretty damn smart. I said, I know I think I'm dumb. Ain't now. You're pretty smart. I said, I just wanted to know. I wanted to hear what you had to say, but after the long finishes with him and Bill Watts, oh, man, I said, wow, why did you cross that? I said, I should be okay. And Wahoo finally told me after I put him in the closet, he says, well, you made me tell you to let me go. So you're about one of the only ones that have done that. I said, well, I had an opportunity to do it to the big chief. And I'm just a regular Indian. He said, oh. He said, you're pretty good, aren't you? And he said, you passed the test, And I said, I think I got a lot of more tests, but I really want to know why there's no black promoters or bookers. I said, I know all of these names. And I said, one thing I learned in Houston that you have to have money. You have to have money. You have to have money from the promoter there. And I said, that promoter, and Wahoo said, amen. That promoter there know how to pay the boys. And I said, I heard that. I said, if it was anybody I'd like to be like as a promoter or booker, would be Paul Bosch. And I meant that. And I saw so many happy men, and I always asked them, are you satisfied? Are you comfortable? Yes. Everything is there. Everything was done like he said. If I ever become a booker or a promoter, I will make sure the boys are paid right and happy. And they said, you might be broke real quick. I enjoyed it, and mainly, most of the top guys, one team, George Scott, we all went from Texas to Carolina, I never will. I did not know that George wanted me to come in to Carolina, and I started Houston, debuted in Houston in '72, and I went straight away in March of '73 to Bombay, India for Luthez, and India back to Texas, and then to Kansas City. So that was like, wow. And start all over, and brought Kansas City up with Mike George there and myself as a young guns or young lions or whatever you want to say. Then I ended up with Brunzell. And then from there I went to Flair. When I think all the other guys was in there, and then Larry Henning and Stan Hansen and Funkman, trying to get up to where Pez was, and Pez was in Amarillo. So
yeah, I remember Pez was...
yeah. They said they had one black, so they didn't need two. I said, okay.
From a guy in Sydney, Australia, called me up here. Jason from Sydney, Australia. And it's kind of a three-part question for Tiger. He said, Tiger, do you follow the current WWE? And if you do, what is your opinion of the New Day? And who do you think, if you follow the current WWE, who do you see as a possible new Black World Wrestling Champion for WWE? Kind of loaded question, but that's from Jason in Sydney, Australia.
Wow. Well, it's quite a few that I could see, but, you know, sometimes I know some of them, but not personally. And even their background, the changes that has came upon them as a face or either heel. I looked, I think it's, is it Kofi Kingston?
Yeah.
Kofi Kingston. I like his style, and I like some of the things that he does, his movement and his work. Stronger than Kofi is kind of hard to say, and how long they would be able to continue as a champion without that stamina and size. I look at it, but oh my God, what is the other guy's name?
Big E Langston, I think. Is that the one?
I don't know.
Yeah, Big.
Yeah, there is. There's Big E Langston, and then I believe the other one is Xavier Woods.
Is he the one that they all are together now or something like that we're going against?
Yeah, and the big like muscle, the big the bodybuilder is named Big E Langston.
I would say him. If I had to, I believe that he could develop into one of the greatest WWE champs, concentrated on the work part and then the stand on top to carry himself as the black champion. That is more important to me than anything about how he stays over, how he gets over, and continues to work on top so fast. I'm sorry I can't see the other guys because it's so new to me and young. I don't really follow them that much because when it's interesting, I will stay right there. And then I'll go from there and I will start, because if I ever get a chance to meet them, I would like to tell them what I saw on that television and that tape about themselves and what they would need to do to help themselves with nothing else to do but continue to do what you're doing. You're on the right path and the right style there. Don't change anything yet. Change is going to come to them, but I don't know. But they should stay there. Following Cena and Roman Reigns or something like that, I know them.
That's some great perspective, Tiger. I hope some of those guys, I think that's one of the things some of those guys need to be hearing from a guy like yourself. I think they would learn a lot just from some of the insights you guys bring.
Yeah, that's true. I wished, more guys had the respect instead of the jealousy. And then say, well, when they hear your name, they kill your name because you are before them. And it's really powerful, very powerful. And the worst thing.
I've been greatly impressed just hearing you because you're very complimentary and you say nice things and give good energy about people. Sometimes you get people that are insecure and they're knocking everybody, and I'm not sure why, but they think that by bringing others down, it brings them up or something.
Yes, there you go.
I think it's certainly speaks well, volumes about what kind of a person you are, that you're saying nice things about people and giving, endeavoring to favor the positive. So it's, and I'd heard that about you before anyway, that you're a genuinely nice guy. And one of the reasons why I think everyone spoke well of you is because, they said you're a person that looks for the good in people, and business needs more people like that.
Well, I think it works, and then that other side that they didn't know, like I said, the 44 and a half years with my better half, and not knowing, in 5 children now, in a gang of grandchildren and great-grandchildren that love their grandfather and love their great-grandfather. There's nothing but respect, and that's it. If not, you've been hearing about so much more. Because there's
I think that's a key word, respect, as Aretha Franklin says, I think it's something the business needs more of, the respect for the guys that went before them, and the respect for and the gratitude for what they've brought and contributed to the business. And,
right.
I'd like to see more of the modern generation. You and I and Matthew and Johnny have been talking about some of the Luthers and your dad and all like that, but it's astonishing how many of today's wrestlers don't even know who the hell Luther Lindsay is, or maybe Stu Hart, or things like that, which is unfortunate. It seems to be one of the downsides of the way the business has gone in the last 10, 15 years. They don't know who the hell Lou Thez is, or Johnny Valentine, or
well, Bruce, you could go down there to Stamford, Connecticut, and maybe put a few sugar holds on a few people, and until they start to figure it out.
Oh yeah, we've been talking about all these legendary people, the Bull Ramos and all. I'd say most of the script writers down in Titan Tower in Stamford, they're don't know who the hell any of those people are. It's just if you're a baseball fan, everyone knows Babe Ruth and Hank Aaron and Jackie Robinson and all like that. But wrestling seems to have they almost have this perception that wrestling started in the 1980s with Hulk Hogan. There was nothing before that or something like that.
And it's a shame too, because they don't realize, the point is to stand on the shoulders of the generation before you, and they don't even want to know, like, who do those shoulders belong to.
They always seem to go out of their way to sweep it under the carpet in case anyone thinks that maybe Bruno Sammartino or Argentina Rocca or Toots Montt or something like that was in there before Vince Senior or whatever. I don't know what they should be endeavoring to glorify that and building on that. Ultimately, I think it makes them look better if they it's like. The United States make it like there's nothing before maybe JFK or some damn thing,
And for the young wrestlers, the way I look at it is, learn about all these men of the past, because, God, you got so much you can steal from them now because nobody's seen it.
Oh,
There's
totally.
So much you could take from the past and use today in a more contemporary setting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I remember some of the guys I broke in here in the 80s, and that was one reason why they, like Dynamite and Davey and Brett and Owen and Benoit and guys like that, but, a big part of their learning was, kind of all the stuff that Stu and these Lou Thez guys like that were telling them. They were fascinated and really aiming to, kind of copy that or kind of, pattern themselves off that. It was a big part of their whole thing, and
right.
I think Benny and them, I don't even know who I don't know, the black hole down in WWE who tells people what to do or what they're basing anything on, but that's a big part of it that's missing. And it's just like even Johnny Mantel was saying, the modern day could really benefit from, revisiting the Luther Lindsays and the Luthezes and guys like that. There's a lot of history there that's almost been kind of eradicated or whitewashed, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, that's not cutting. But going back to Shaska, I asked Booker T and Ahmed Johnson. I had a run with. I had something to do with them very early. I was going overseas to Singapore and Malaysia and Japan, and I was just training while my other kids was being born also. And I was just working indie in Houston here. Ahmed Johnson and Stevie, Booker T, started. I would come in, and not just being a bully, but since I was trying to show them and tell them, working with them, because there was someone else's show, I would walk in and I would say, as I was training with my children, I said, anybody feel like beating the unknown world champion that's black? And they would look at me, and I was trying to get to my father, and they wouldn't say nothing, So they just looked, and I said, well, same thing every day. I walk in every day. I said, I don't mean anything, but I just felt that somebody should feel like, wow, I'm in here all by myself. I said, that's it. So one day they decided, and I think it was the time they had heard about Brody in Puerto Rico. And just to show you how following someone, competing and mimicking and trying to be like that, this is where their head was by whoever trained them. And I think it was Putski, Tugboat, Taylor. They wouldn't accept the challenge. So I said, okay, maybe one day y'all will be world champion. I don't know how, but I have a spark show, and they decided to gang up on the young Tiger. Ahmed Johnson put a bear hug on me, and I politely took the 2 shots to the head. I have a hard head. I politely put my finger in his eyeball and pulled it out and put it back in his eye. And Booker T and Stevie saw this. I have not talked to them since, or Ahmed Johnson. And I told him, I said, the reason, and believe you me, that is what happened. He went to WW or whatever, or WCW, and that's the end of that. But that's on the way. And I told him, I said, I don't think you guys are going to have good luck because you don't have respect for someone that was before you. And I don't know who your family is or whatever. I don't know you that well. But I'm going to tell you good luck, and I don't want to see you no more.
What has ever become of Ahmed? I haven't seen it. Tony's his name, isn't it, or something? I haven't.
Tony Norris.
Yeah.
Tony Norris.
I thought he went to prison for some rather unscrupulous
I haven't seen him and heard the name in years. He seemed to be getting a half push in the 90s there, and then.
Even if we cross here, I have no, I have respect for the business. I don't play with it because it means a lot, And some, I don't think it ever will be there for some of the boys, And the ones that have lost in it, they never have found anything else, And I look every day to see if they've made it, anywhere else, if it's anything. I tell you that if I wasn't who I am and have beliefs in what I do and say, I probably wouldn't be here today, And I know that. But it's the way you carry yourself also. All of them stories that you hear, I'm not telling you only the truth. This is the gospel right here today about my family, Conway and Allie and all of that's connected because I can stand on that. I can stand on that real. No fabrication, no make. And that's what I like, And their jealousy and their egos, they let that play a big part. And when it comes down to it, when it's over, And then that's kind of like a down. I didn't want it to get there, but I wanted to say that. But along the way, my dad said you run into all the good ones and the bad ones, and you know, my dad said it's a difference in apples and oranges, you know, and these are first class. What is it? He said this guy is a first class prick, you know, and wow, first class. I said that's the best. He said that's it. You don't get no better than that.
I think back in the day, Tiger, in its own way, I think the pecking order, just the boys nowadays, you know, with WWE and all like that, you know, a lot of it's based on ass kissing and stooging and all the other, you know, and it's kind of. But back in the day, if you were a real asshole, the boys would, you know, chew you up and spit you out. You know, every territory there was guys, you know, if you were backstabbing and stooging and shit disturbing and all that stuff, the boys would call you out and somebody would maybe kick your ass or, it was a good antidote to the bullshit, you know, and nowadays I don't know that that's the case, you know, like you had to be kind of, you know, fairly decent guy to survive in the business back in the day because the boys would chew you up and spit you out if you were an asshole, you know, but nowadays I don't know, you know. But.
That's right, and I tell you right now, you're right, because I said to them, and you heard what I said, as I was working out and enjoying myself, I asked any of them that they wanted to challenge me on anything. And the respect was supposed to be there because I respected them because I didn't say anything to them and said, hey, I go to work and I need my tools. If they can't do what I'm supposed to do, I can't work, right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, golly, how many days do you want to do that? Yes, if you're working for somebody, I understand you got a job. But it seems like you're interested in that job unless this job here means more to you, this hobby that you're doing, and you're not respecting it like the real people in the business respect, something is wrong. We need to be on the same page, you know. If not, when you get off here, you leave all this here in that ring over, and then you come back and we put it back there together again the next day. I didn't get a chance to mention my one buddy, the Ronnie Garden. I know you know Ronnie.
Oh yeah, those are all pretty tough old guys too.
Oh, what stories do we have to tell?
Kind of old shooters. Was old Bob Orton Junior around then too?
Oh man, yes. I said I'm getting out of here. I said you guys are too tough for me. I say, but I'm not going to do anything to you all. Do you all understand that? And Bob looked at me, just like the old man. I said,
even old, what's his name, Randy Savage, I think, was around that pack back then. Randy and Lenny, you know, before they ever went to WWE. That
you had them too. So we'll give a chance to tell you the story about me and Garvin against Lanny and Randy. And Angelo was on the stage watching in Columbia, South Carolina. And you can believe it. Shoot, work, and whatever you want to call it. Brawl, gang fight, and whatever. And I had nothing to do with it. It was all about something happened in Tennessee. And we were working, and then all of a sudden we went to a shoot, and the people in the ringside said, now, I know that's not the wrestling we're used to. And we were hitting them so hard, man, body slammed them on the stairs. Chairs came out, and a working chair, and then a shooting chair, and then they'd register and look at you. And Angelo was coming, and then he stopped. You wouldn't believe it. Golly, I said, what happened? And Garvin said, oh, it's something about Tennessee, and we were in Knoxville, and we were together. And I said, oh, God, what did y'all do that to me for? He said, you're just a victim of circumstances. I said, I won't be a victim no more. I said, God, I said, damn, I've seen it change from night to day. You hear me? You know, I run to the dressing room and go get the recruits or who, or whatever's going on. And Garvin was slinging lefts and rights you would not believe, man. So I just followed him with him, and Randy was like, what is wrong with you guys? I said, I didn't take none of that. I didn't eat none of that. They said, golly. I said, golly. I said, no wonder. And I never will forget that. But when we see Garvin, I usually got to see him. And that's unbelievable, unbelievable. I mean, up and down the roads, man, 100 miles an hour, Garvin drive, and then the airplane ride. Golly. You got me warmed up here now, I'm telling you. And I wish I would have talked to you all before now. This has been great. This has really been great. These are true stories. It don't get any realer than this, I'm telling you. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the show, and I'm glad I was on, and it's a pleasure to come back on whenever you need me. Because
I'd love to, Tiger. It's been fascinating, and I had been told so many nice things about you before the show, and I certainly lived up to everything. Great guest, and I'd love to have you back again.
I'm glad I can say this now while I'm still living today. When I close my eyes, I am not going to have to worry about anything about the business because I think I was good to everybody. Do you understand? I think that I handle myself as a champion, as a person, and a man of respect. And that's all I ever wanted back.
Tiger, it's, as I said before, been a pleasure, and we'll look forward to the next time.